All right, YouTube, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. We got Monday Night Football, week number 6 in the NFL. Falcons taking on the Bills. In today's video, I'm going to dive into this game. I'll break it down. I'll give you my prediction on the side. I'll give you my prediction on the total. We'll talk about a few player props that we like in this game as well. But as always, guys, make sure to keep an eye down on the pinned comment of this video. That's where you'll find all of my final plays, so that I'm actually rolling with myself. If that does interest you, it's absolutely free down in the pinned comment. All right, YouTube, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. I tell you guys I'm a dummy all the time. They don't suck. They've just been sucking. Get them down to -3 for more juice than Jose Canseco in his prime. Tell me you're new without telling me you're new. So don't go jumping down my throat in the comments, right? If you want to fade me, or if you do want to ride me, this still leaves a bad taste in my mouth, right? And remember, more chins, more wins. Now, FYI, guys, there are 2 Monday Night Football games this week. If you're looking for the Washington and Chicago game, that'll be posted as its own separate video here on the Guy Boston Sports YouTube channel, so keep an eye out for that. All right, let's get going here, guys. We got the Falcons taking on the Bills. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. As always, drop all of your favorite plays in the comments down below. I love seeing what the community's vibe is, what you're looking at, some nice angles and spots that you guys see. So let me know all those favorite plays down in the comments. And like I tell you guys, it's not just for my enjoyment or me to get the read on the room. You're also helping out a bunch of other people that may be looking for some additional plays in this game. So drop your favorite plays down in the comments. But we got the Falcons here, 4.5-point dogs at home. Total sitting at 49.5. Falcons coming off of a win a couple weeks ago. They're coming off of a bye in reality, but they did beat that Washington squad 34-27. The Bills coming off of a loss last week, Sunday Night Football, to my New England Patriots, 23-20. Maybe they got a little fire under their you-know-what after a loss. They are 4-1 on the year. Still a decent record, right? But let's talk about this Atlanta offense versus the Bills defense. Then we'll flip it. We'll go Bills offense versus Atlanta defense, get into our spread and total leans, then we'll close out with a few player props. We have a decent amount to cover there. But all right, Michael Penix versus this Buffalo defense. We should see a decent amount of zone from this Bills defense. Through the first 5 weeks of the year, they're playing zone at a top 10 clip in the NFL, and we can even show you here on the Guy Boston Sports dashboard, right? 9th in terms of zone rate. How does Michael Penix fare against the zone? And by the way, guys, this is the Guy Boston Sports NFL dashboard. We'll talk a little bit later in the video how to get access to it, but essentially GuyBostonSports.com, NFL dashboard, sign up there. Michael Penix versus zone, it looks like, yeah, his completion percentage goes up, but everything else, yards per attempt, interception rate, DVOA, and EPA all go down. So probably good news for the Bills defense that he isn't a zone killer or anything like that. But the biggest thing to note here would be the pressure rate, would be the blitz rate. Not loving what I see from Michael Penix in terms of completion percentage, 50% against the pressure, DVOA -37%, EPA -5.2. So not going to sit here and tell you that Michael Penix is in the best of situations against a Buffalo team that will blitz, that will apply pressure. They also have the #1 rated defense in terms of clean pocket percentage, so the lowest percentage to their opposition for clean pocket, 4th in adjusted sack rate. So yeah, we could see some pressure get to Michael Penix. The one thing I would say, though, to counter my own self, Tampa Bay, week #1, similar in terms of pressure and blitz and, all that being forward. Michael Penix had a decent game against them, right? Last week, he's coming off probably his best start of the season, so maybe he is up for the challenge, right? But ultimately, I don't think it's like a great, all signs go, green light special type deal for Michael Penix. Couple things to note, though. This Bills team is allowing the 7th most check down throws, which could be pretty huge for some of these shorter targeted guys on the Falcons, but also the 5th highest scramble rate against. So the percent of plays in which the quarterback scrambles. Penix is not a runner by trade or anything like that, but I do think that we could look at his rush yards and his, rush attempts. We'll talk about that a little bit later when we get to the player props, but I think that is at least worth noting. Now, speaking of rushing, let's jump into the run game here for this Atlanta squad, right? It's been very interesting, and they have a really dynamic backfield with Bijan, and even Tyler Algier, who's getting a lot of work now, right? 6th in yards per game, but only 18th in yards per carry. The good news is that Buffalo is allowing the 5th most yards per game and the 3rd highest yards per carry, the 6th highest EPA per attempt against, 9th highest success rate against, 3rd in terms of yards before contact, and the highest explosive run rate in the entire NFL. So yeah, we probably could see some good run game drives that are led by the run and everything like that, some successful plays against this Bills defense on the ground from Bijan and or Tyler Algier, right? Now, what types of runs are we going to see schematic-wise from this Atlanta team? Outside zones. They run that more than anyone in the league. Now, looking at Buffalo versus the outside zone, 10th most yards per carry allowed. The two other bottom 10 teams that this Falcons team has seen, Washington and Minnesota, and they had really good run games that week. And by the way, those are the only 2 wins they have this year. So very important to note that outside zone, right? Buffalo, 6th highest EPA against, 8th most yards before contact. Now, weirdly enough, they have the 4th best success rate. So yeah, take that with a grain of salt, but there is a positive metric in there in terms of their run game against. I think that the Falcons do rely on the run here to move the ball. That would make a whole lot of sense to me. Again, I said this is not exactly the best spot for Michael Penix, but I'm seeing no real obstacles or any friction there in the run game against. So maybe we do lean into and kind of take a peek at some more running back action, and that's the way that they kind of move the ball, right? Let's flip this over to talk about Buffalo's offense versus the Falcons' defense. So Josh Allen should see a decent amount of man. If we jump back into the Guy Boston Sports NFL dashboard, you can see man coverage, they play a decent amount. Josh Allen versus man, not exactly loving it. I will say DVOA and EPA, those 2 advanced metrics, those do go up, but yards per attempt slightly down, completion percentage down to 61.1. Interception rate goes up for him as well. So definitely worth noting that in terms of coverage, not exactly the best spot. Now, another thing I would say, and this kind of helps Josh Allen, but marginally, there's going to be a ton of one high safety looks. That's what the Falcons are doing a lot. Is it astronomical how much better Josh Allen versus one high versus two high is? No, but he is slightly better with those one high safety looks in front of him. So, again, you'll hear me say this a lot, but take that with a grain of salt as well. Just like the Bills defense, the Falcons' pressure is the biggest thing to know here. 7th in terms of pressure rate, 3rd in terms of blitz rate, and Josh Allen versus the pressure, versus the blitz, not all that tremendous. Now, like this Bills defense, the Falcons also have plenty of quarterbacks scrambling against them, right? Which is, I think, very good to note because Josh Allen, now him by trade, he might take off and run. So stuff for us to keep in mind, right? But like I said, 7th highest pressure rate, 3rd highest blitz rate, the 4th highest rate in terms of muddying up the pocket, 3rd highest adjusted sack rate, 8th highest quarterback hit percentage as well. So yes, I think just like Michael Penix, Josh Allen may be in some deep you-know-what here if he's going to try and sit in the pocket and deliver balls. Now, he does have the ability to scramble, and I just said a lot of scrambles against this Atlanta team. Maybe that's his kind of key to success or the kryptonite against this Atlanta squad. Now, the run game. The Bills' 2nd highest yards per carry in the highest yards per game in the 8th highest yards per carry. Atlanta's just 22nd in yards per carry against, 5th worst success rate on the ground, 5th best explosive rate. So I do think that, as much as they stink, they're not going to allow James Cook to have these breakaway runs or anything like that. But either way, I do think that much like we said with the Atlanta offense versus the Bills defense, we could see some decent success on the ground. Taking a peek at the type of runs that we'll see from the Bills, a lot of inside zones. They run a ton of inside zone. Atlanta, from just a quick glance, has the best yards per carry number against inside zone. I do think it's worth noting that the level of competitions the running back they've seen have not been all that tremendous, especially from the inside zone perspective, but yes, it is a fact. Number 1 in terms of yards per carry against the inside zone. The 4th best DVOA, the 2nd best success rate, and the best explosive run rate. We already talked about that, right? Limiting that explosive run. So sure, from the general gut reaction optics, this Atlanta run defense hasn't been all that great. Against inside zone, things do seem to check out. So where do we go from a spread and total perspective here in this one? It's tough because, the Bills are what I would consider by far and away the better team. But honestly, based on how even I'm seeing things from, schematic wise or schematic perspective and everything like that. Also to note, the Bills do have a couple injuries. Dalton Kincaid questionable. Deion Dawkins left tackle questionable. A lot of guys dinged up on the defense as well. I think I'm leaning towards the Falcons here plus the 4.5 points. I think if they can establish the run, if they can get Bijan and maybe even Algier going, there's a chance that they can keep this game close. And I mean, after watching the Bills against the Patriots, yeah, that defense does have some question marks, does have some issues, right? So 4.5 points seems like a pretty big number for me in this spot, especially with the team coming off a bye at home. They have mega extended rest. Give me the Falcons plus the 4.5 points. That total at 49.5. Well, I do think this could be a game that gets up into the mid to high 40s if both teams are going to apply the run game, mindset, right? Let's win in the trenches. That's where the weakness of the defense that we're going up against and all that. I think that leads slightly to an under, right? And we could see a 27-21 type of game here or something like that, and it still stays under that 49.5. So I like the idea of the under 49.5 in this spot. Slightly, though, like I said, mid to high 40s is where I have this game pegged. It's just the highest amount of 40s overall. So yes, let's lean towards the under. I'll make this clear, too. If someone likes the Bills minus the 4.5 points, I'm not really here to argue that. I don't think that that's a terrible look because, like I said, this Bills team I do think is by far and away the better team. But based on what we've seen this year and based on the schemes and I guess the ceiling of what the Falcons can do and the players they have, I think it's a little bit closer than that 4.5 points. Guys, before we do jump into the player prop portion of the video, I want to talk to you about Epic Fantasy. Make sure to use the link down in the description as well as the pinned comment. Sign up using code GUYBOSTON. You'll get your first deposit matched up to $50. You put in 50, you get a free 50, you got 100 to play with. One of the coolest things that they've done is bring this thing to the desktop version. If you're serious about this stuff, you're using your computer a little bit more than your phone, right? And this is clean. The interface is absolutely awesome. You pick more or less based on player set projections. The more you win, the more you get paid out. What they do really differently is the fade 'em section. You can come on here and say, okay, you know what? All the time, I don't like your plays. I'm going to take the opposite, and all you need is one of the plays to go in favor of you and against them, and you cash the slip. So it's a really cool game mode that they have introduced. Again, that is Epic Fantasy. Link down below in the description, as well as the pinned comment. Let's jump into some player props that we like. So prop number 1/number 2 would be taking a peek at Michael Penix. Over 2.5 right now for his rush attempts on MGM, minus 118. Seems like it's something that we could be getting involved in now. Through 4 games, yes, he's only done it in 2 of these games. But take a peek at, the rushes that we've seen from opposing quarterbacks. 3 from May. Now, he didn't hit his line, but what I'm saying is that no quarterback other than Tua has gone under this line. 3 from May, Spencer Rattler with 6, 5 from Justin Fields, and Lamar with 6 carries. So I think this could be a nice spot. Remember, we talked about that scramble rate, the 5th or 6th highest rate for both of these teams against when they have the quarterbacks out there scrambling, right? So I don't mind this spot for him to rush it 2.5 times or 3 times. The cool thing is maybe we do get a kneel at the end of the game, maybe a kneel at the end of the half. That counts as an attempt. Now, over 5.5 is what we just saw this at earlier, right, on MGM. A lot of books are actually having this, priced in the 7.5 range and stuff like that. You can see all there. 5.5 rushing yards is also something that I'm considering. Now, this game, he actually had a rush for 5 yards, and I believe he knelt it like 2 yards back or something like that. So technically speaking, he did get to 6 yards, but then because of kneels at the end of that game, took it back, right? But either way, I think this could be another explosive type game. In terms of rushing yards allowed versus the quarterback, nobody's allowing more than the Buffalo Bills. So Michael Penix Jr. on the ground, low numbers. Yes, it's really risky. We're kind of dropping our cojones on the table and saying, hey, because that scramble rate, X, Y, and Z will follow. Let's hope that's the case, because yes, obviously these are very low, but what I like, it could take one play to hit the over here, right? He gets pressured from the ends, right up the gap, something like that. Moving on. I don't think you can go wrong with either one of the running backs today. The fact that we can get Bijan in the minus 140s to score a touchdown, I think by game time, this thing's juiced to the moon. So I like him. He can obviously do it via, the ground or catching a ball. Buffalo, 26 in terms of running back touchdowns against. If we look at guys that played against him, they've had plenty of touchdowns. Ramondre had 2. Kendre Miller on the Saints had 1. We had Ollie Gordon with 1. So I think this could be a good spot as long as this is, I would say, a competitive game, which obviously, if we lean towards the Falcons here, then we think it's going to be somewhat competitive. I like the idea of Bijan. He's leading the team in red zone targets this year. Obviously, red zone rush attempts as well. I will note, look at how close this is. Tyler Algier definitely gets some workload in there, but red zone targets for a running back to be leading that and the Bills to have such a high check down rate could definitely be a spot for a Bijan touchdown. I thought about the idea of, his rushing yards and stuff, but 76.5 is very, very high. You could see some of the previous guys that went up against this Bills team. Yeah, they hit their overs, but nobody except for Derrick Henry in that first game went over the 70 mark, right? Alvin Kamara had 70, great. And yes, they had guys hit their overs, but that is still such a high number. Even though I think the schematics and everything like that look to Bijan, I think it's a high line. What I might pivot to, if we want to take some yards or attempts, Tyler Algier. 7.5 carries for plus money over on FD right now. He's had 10, 16, okay, 1, and then 16. We could get plus money for him to rush the ball 8 times. I really don't mind it. I mean, last year, he hit this in 10 of 17 games. This series hit it in 3 of 4, averaging 10 carries per game. So, yeah, I think that this could be a nice play as well. His rush yards at 29.5 could also be something to look at. Again, we talked about the rush share, right? He's not exactly getting no workload, you know what I mean? Like 33% of the time he's running the ball, and that makes sense in a game like this when I do think Bijan and him will both be heavily relied on. So if Bijan's as the number one starter, right, is heavily relied on, they'll want to give him some drives off, some breaks and stuff like that. So I think sneaky, we could look at Tyler Algier here over his attempts for plus money, or if we want to go here, minus 114 for that over 29.5. Now, 2 Buffalo Bill player props that I'm liking. James Cook, over 16.5 attempts for just the odds that we're getting. This is kind of a value play, right? It's around even odds on most books. ProfitX exchange right now, plus 121. I like him even, if you want to take it on, say, FanDuel at 15.5 for the minus 114. I like that as well. I also like the idea, obviously, of a James Cook touchdown. Being able to get this, yes, it's juiced, much like, the Bijan one, but I think that this is going to be minus 180, minus 190 by game time. James Cook scores pretty much every game. He didn't last game, so naturally, I think that he is due. You can even see this dating back to last year, including this season. He has not had 2 games in a row in which he did not score. So come on, you're telling me this guy's not going to score against the team that I already have stated has some gaps when it comes to the run game. So yeah, I do like those spots. And again, guys, just to give a little recap here, I almost regretfully lean towards the Falcons because I admit I think this Bills team and the offense is really, really good and they're the better team. Josh Allen's amazing, but just there's some gaps there in that defense that I think the Falcons can do some work. So I lean towards the Falcons plus 4.5. Total, I lean under 49.5. Then in terms of player prop perspective, I like Michael Penix on the ground, whether you're looking at his 5.5 rush yards or his 2.5 rush attempts. Bijan to punch one in, I like him to score. Tyler Algier, I like his over 7.5 attempts if you can get plus money. If not, don't mind his 29.5 rushing yards. James Cook, I like him to score a touchdown as well. And actually, we forgot about one. Here it is. Again, this is a plus money spot. Keon Coleman, 3.5 receptions. It's another one we have drawn up here. Now, Atlanta's a good defense. They're good against the wide receivers and all that. But what did we talk about earlier? The pressure, the blitzing. This guy is targeted over 20% of the time against the pressure. Now, also, he leads the team in, target share and stuff like that, so it does make sense I guess he's tied with Khalil Shakir. But there is a little separation that comes in when man coverage is in front of him, which, by the way, like we already mentioned, that is what we can expect from the Falcons, right? When one high safety is in front of him, that's what we can expect from the Falcons. When Josh Allen's pressured, when Josh Allen is blitzed, Keon Coleman takes a little bit of separation from Khalil Shakir. So I like him for 4 catches in this one, as long as you're getting the same kind of price at plus 120, because he's only done this, I think, twice so far this season. And in terms of his targets, I mean, he's getting targeted in some of these games, 3 or 4 times. So it's definitely a little sweaty, but for that plus money, I think that this thing is good to go. So yeah, just to recap that one, Keon Coleman, James Cook, we had Michael Penix Jr., Bijan, and Tyler Algier from our player prop perspective. That's going to do it for me, guys. Hopefully you guys did enjoy. If you did, go ahead and comment 19 down below. Really do appreciate it. Hit that like button. Hit that subscribe button. We'll catch you guys in the next one. Make sure to go check out the other video from Monday Night Football, right? Peace out.